Dr. Mbembe, the elections are due soon and you've put yourself up as a candidate. Why and why now?
I didn't put myself up as a candidate. I was put as a candidate by the Socialist Party. It took a year and 4 months to convince me to accept to lead the party and be its presidential candidate. What made me accept in the end was the gravity of the situation. We socialists don't aspire for positions. We are deployed by our comrades. So I've been deployed by my comrades in the Socialist Party to stand as the presidential candidate. Being president for me doesn't mean anything as an individual. It's not about me. It's about the collective responsibility, the collective tasks we have.
I see that you've had quite a long career politically as a student activist and supporting a number of candidates and parties. I mean, you pushed for multi-party democracy and that eventually saw President Chiluba come into office. But your early days were with the South African Communist Party. And is that where your socialist ideals really sort of bore fruit?
Yes, I'm a product of Chris Hani, I'm a product of Jos Slovo, I'm a product of Ben Turok and others. I grew up in the South African Communist Party and its allies. I owe it to those three individuals. I owe it to the South African liberation struggle that brought me up. The later part, of course, I spent it in Zambia, but the foundation is in the South African Communist Party, or the Communist Party of South Africa, as it was called then.
So what do you think the South Africa, the Socialist Party can bring to Zambia?
Well, the world is changing. Capitalism is in a deeper crisis. It's failing to address humanity's major problems. Capitalism today is failing to deal with the issue of inequality, growing inequality in the world. It's failing to deal with the growing poverty in the world. It's failing to deal with the social problems afflicting humanity today, unemployment and so on. Every year in winter, they go to Davos for the World Economic Forum. What are they trying to deal with? They are trying to grapple with these problems. Growing inequality, growing poverty, growing joblessness in the world. Despite high production levels being achieved through improved technologies in the world, poverty is not reducing. Poverty is growing. Hunger is growing. Capitalism is in a crisis. It's trying to deal with these issues, but it has no solutions to them because the solutions to these problems will need capitalism to go, will demand that capitalism goes. They are not ready to let go of capitalism. So they have interventions. It's like trying to find the cure for HIV. It's very easy for scientists to find a drug that can destroy the virus, that can kill the virus. But the challenge is to find a drug that can kill the virus without killing the body. You can be injected with a drug that will kill the virus, but after that, shortly, you also go. That's the challenge capitalism is under today. It's not that they don't have good economists. They have good economists. But to find the policies that will deal with these problems of growing inequality, growing unemployment, growing poverty without destroying capitalism is a problem. They come with interventions like ARVs now, but they are not destroying the virus. And that's a challenge capitalism is in today. Only and only socialism can answer to the challenges of humanity today.
All right, let's talk a little bit about where you are and where the country is politically. When one does a little bit of a search and research, one finds that what's been happening in Zambia over time is that you started with UNEP, then the MMD came through, and then over time, many other parties started to come to fruition. The Rainbow Party, from which your party split, originally came from the Patriotic Front. So my question to you is, are we not just recycling the same politicians, but just giving them a different name?
We are not from the Rainbow Party. We are totally an independent party. We didn't come from the Rainbow Party. I was not a member of the Rainbow Party. Yes, there might have been some members of Rainbow, like our vice president, he was a member of Rainbow. I was not a member, and many others. He, the only one in the top leadership of the party who was a member of Rainbow. And most of our members are totally new to politics. Yes, there have been some who have been in political parties, but at very low levels. So this is a new party. We have never had the Socialist Party in Zambia, per se. This is the first time we're having a Socialist Party that is competing with the rest who are capitalist, pro-capitalist parties. So it's not a recycling. This is a new approach with the new policies that have never been seen in Zambia.
Do you think, though, that it helps the Zambian public to have so many parties? Because, again, with each election, more and more parties are coming to the fore. And what it then does is split the vote. I think Mr. Lungu won the vote less than 50% one year, didn't he?
It's not about splitting the vote. We came from a one-party state into a multi-party political dispensation in 1991, starting in 1990, in December 1990. It's not about how many parties you have. It's not about splitting the vote. It's about the multi-political dispensation. When you have a multi-party political dispensation, it just means that people are free to have their own political parties. And you can't limit that. You can't edit that. You can't reduce it to 2 or 3 parties. No. Even if it was possible to have 1 million parties, let it be. That's what multi-party political dispensation requires. It's not about splitting the vote. Splitting whose vote? Each party will get its own vote. So which vote are you splitting? There's no issue of splitting any vote. Okay. All the political parties who enter an election are competing with each other. It's not just those in the opposition competing with those in the government. No. Yes. You are competing with the fellow opposition political parties as well. Yes. Everyone who enters the race on their own ticket, they are competing with everybody else.
Yes, and in the ideal world, this works well. However, we have a situation in your country where in the last election, 2 parties got 98% of the vote. And so people might say that the best chance that you have of unseating the current ruling party is to back Hakainde Hichilema's party in an alliance with them. Does that not make sense?
This party was not formed to unseat the ruling party. It was formed to take over government and run a socialist program. Regardless of who is in power, as long as they are capitalist parties. Mr. Hakaine's party and the ruling party have called them to be Siamese twins, sharing the same umbilical cord. They are both capitalist parties. Their members are the same. The current president of the ruling party came from UPND, from Hakaine's party. The current vice president of the republic came from the same party. She was a member of parliament for the same UPND. We have seen top leaders of UPND and top leaders of the ruling Patriotic Front crisscrossing. They have changed the level, members at the vice president level, a good number of them. So they are the same parties pursuing the same policies. If you analyze their economic and social policies, they are the same. And that's why it's easy for them to exchange members. They are still exchanging members even as we are talking today. They are the same parties for us. It's them on one side, it's us on the other side alone. So there isn't any issue of us joining Hakainde or UPND or joining Mr. Lungu and this party. No, we are a socialist party that is distinct from the rest of the other parties. If there will be a socialist party or a communist party formed tomorrow, it's easier for us to get into an alliance with them, but it won't be a happenstance alliance. It will be a strategic alliance. We will all be socialists fighting probably on different fronts for the same goals, and we can work together. We are not fighting for the same goals with the current parties that are there, the capitalist parties. So there can't be an issue of splitting votes or an alliance with them. They are pursuing a different agenda. We have got our own agenda.
Do you think that the Socialist Party can win this election?
Our chances are just as good as any of the other two parties. This will be a three-horse race between or among the UPND, the Patriotic Front, and us. Any of us stand a good chance of winning. It's not how long a party has existed. We have seen parties being formed in this country 9 months before the elections and they win. The Patriotic Front did that. The MMD did that. The Patriotic Front itself was formed after the UPND was formed. The UPND was formed in 1998. The Patriotic Front was formed in 2001. The Patriotic Front is in government today. It started beating the UPND in 2006. Since 2006, UPND has never defeated the Patriotic Front. So our chances are as good as any other party that is participating in these elections. And we may shock people. We have done a lot of work. We have been in almost all the parts of our country. We have spent time not just talking on radio and television, no. We have been on the ground. So our chances are good. So don't be shocked if you on August 12, we win these elections.
Dr. Mbembe, perhaps you can help us understand a little bit more about the political environment that you find yourself in at the moment. We've seen that the Electoral Commission has banned campaigning. They say that it's due to COVID-19. Is that something you agree with, or do you think that there's another agenda at play here?
The restrictions did not start with COVID. They have been there for a long time. We had the Public Order Act that was being used to stifle opposition political mobilization work. We have been subjected to that long before COVID started. COVID is just an addition, probably a pretext to perpetuate their desire to ensure that the opposition in any form does not have space to mobilize. Yes, we do realize and accept that the COVID is a reality that cannot be ignored, but it's not the only issue at play now.
Do you think that things can get better for Zambia, that can change quite quickly with the right people in charge? There are a good number of people who think that the leadership that's there is good enough to take them into the new era.
I don't think the current leadership can take this country anywhere. Poverty levels are rising. Today, we have rural poverty averaging 76.6%. The poorest province in Zambia today has poverty levels of 82.2%. That's Western Province, followed by Luapula Province, which has got 81.1%. These are very high poverty levels. Today, Zambia is the fourth hungriest country in Africa and the fifth hungriest country in the world, after the Central African Republic, Chad, Madagascar, and Yemen. We are the fifth in the world. We have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. We have one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world. The physician ratio or doctor ratio today stands at 9 doctors per every 100,000 Zambians. What does this mean? We are losing so many of our women in childbirth because they cannot be attended to by a doctor. It's a simple cesarean operation, there's no doctor to carry it out. So where is the progress? That aside, even just on civil liberties, we have seen the shrinking of the democratic space in the country from the early 90s. We had more liberty to organize, to mobilize. There was much more freedom of expression, much more freedom of speech, much more freedom of assembly, much more freedom to protest. Today, that has shrunk to almost zero. The economy is not doing well. The country is highly indebted again. We have borrowed more than 100% of our GDP. The debt today, the government says it stands at 12 billion, although the World Bank and the IMF are saying it stands at not less than 28 billion. We have no capacity to pay that. We are in a serious crisis. Where is the progress? Where is the progress? Amidst such high poverty levels, amidst such high indebtedness, amidst such civil strife,